welcome. Thursday night. What's going on, chat? What is going on, guys? Here, welcome back to another weekly shows. We are here in 2022, and there's a lot of things to talk about tonight. But before we get started, let's go around the triangle. Say hello to everyone. Let's start with Ben. Ben, what's
How
going
are you
on this week?
guys? How are you, Jim? How are you, Josh? It's very good to see you guys. I love doing
What up,
this
what up?
every Thursday. Life is good when you can just sit home a little bit and snuggle to your TV and play the game that you've been postponing for a year. So for me, it's Cyberpunk. Are you guys playing anything?
Not at the moment. I was going to play a little bit of Skyrim today just to kill some time, but it had a 25 gig update, and I was like, all right.
I've been trying. So I don't know if you guys have seen there's that MMO Lost Ark that really popped off last week with views. I played for a couple hours last week, and I just haven't been able to get back. And that's where I always struggle with MMOs. It's like I don't have the consistent time to play them to really be part of those communities, and I think that makes it tough. But I have been playing Dying Light 2 a little bit on console, and I got to tell you guys, I don't know if it's just me. Anyone who's playing this game in the chat, I get motion sick playing that game. They do some sort of camera shake because the character has a lot of parkour, and for whatever reason, when I play it, I feel like I'm gonna hurl the whole time. So, so I gotta play in small bursts, but that's it.
My brother's playing that too.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool designed world. But outside of that, guys, there was a lot of, so we're gonna do a little different kind of episode today. We're gonna talk about our current events. We're gonna talk about some stuff throughout the week. But there's not a ton of what I'd call breaking news. There's some interesting discussion points. So we're gonna spend a lot of time really talking about Star Wars TV shows. We're in a perfect time right now after the Book of Boba Fett has wrapped, right before Kenobi releases, to just take a second and say, hey, what's working for Star Wars on TV? What's been the most successful? What do we want to see more of? What have we liked? And talk about what we want to see in upcoming projects. So I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit of a different change of pace, but I hope everyone in chat is excited to talk about that with us. And if you're watching this not live, you're watching this on Friday or Saturday, let us know your favorite shows down below as well as we go through this, and we'll be sure to respond and have a good time there. I wanted to start this morning with kind of this afternoon, this night, wherever you are, talking about probably the big story of the week, just to kind of give our thoughts. We made reactions, each of us. I don't feel like we need to spend too much time, but there was a cinematic for the Old Republic, and it was really good, as they all are. It was called Disorder, and I reacted to it. Ben reacted to it. Ben gave his long thoughts to it. I wanted to just talk about that for a second, and see where we fell. So if you guys don't know, Jimmy and I do not play the game. Ben has recently started. He's doing a playthrough on his channel. Go check it out. But these cinematics are phenomenal. Doesn't matter if you play the game. Doesn't matter if you're just a casual fan. I love to watch them. I think the craft of the quality of the animation alone is really tip of the cap. It looks absolutely fantastic. What did you guys think of that cinematic this week? As we're letting folks come in here, what was the takeaway from you guys on the new Old Republic cinematic Disorder?
I thought, well, until somebody mentioned to me that this latest trailer was produced by a different studio that did the previous ones, obviously, which Knights of the Old Republic's the MMORPG is legendary for, right? Once we saw those intro sequences, everybody was blown away. Looking at this one, obviously the tech has improved, especially on facial animations. Obviously, you see a lot more detail on the CGI, and especially in terms lighting effects and special details, like when fire and smoke is billowing. Yeah. But stylistically, it is so in sync with the rest of them that I wasn't even alert. I wasn't thinking twice, like, hey, is that same video game or not? Is this a new project? It felt so much like the previous trailers. I was right on board with that.
I felt like, for me, one thing these do such a good job of is this one specifically is it told a story, like a little small story in itself. And even though I don't have all the context about these characters, about this world, I found myself immediately wanting to know more, immediately connecting, even in that small little 6 minutes. So really effective there. Jimmy, what did you think?
I loved it. It's just so fun to watch these trailers, especially since I will on occasion just watch through all of them. But I love the fact that even if you go back and watch the very first one they had, none of these trailers look bad. Yeah. Yet each one just gets better and better And that's the crazy part. So like, it's to the point now where like I could go back and watch the first one and be like, this one isn't as polished, but it's just because this new trailer is so well made and the
So
quality
darn
is.
good.
I had a question for you guys.
Yeah.
So somebody raised a question on my Facebook group. They were asking, "Hey, I think this is, basically BioWare saying thank you to all the loyal fans that have been with the game for 10 years, right? It's 10th anniversary. And they feel that this is a send-off and this is them basically wrapping up this RPG and trying to move on to something else."
Yeah.
And I countered, but I wanted to get your thoughts, guys. I countered with saying like, no, I think this is a brand new chapter because it's still very, very active RPG. I believe it's one of the most played MMOs out there right now, partially because it's free. And also, obviously, because it's a very, very narrative-driven. You could completely solo it like you would with a normal game. That's the way I'm playing it. What do you guys think? Is this kind of like finalizing and saying goodbye to this RPG? Or is it something more on the way?
Jimmy, I'll let you take a first stab at it.
That's not what I got out of it. I don't think this is like a last hurrah for the game. However, if they came out and said this is like the last major expansion, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. I would be a little disappointed. I'd be like, oh, that's a shame. Because I mean, like, even after Knights of the Eternal Throne, the one that was right before this one?
I think so.
Yeah, like that one came out years ago.
Right.
It's been so long.
6 years apart, right?
Let's say it's been so long since we've gotten this next cinematic. So, if anything, it just shows that this is just a big improvement to the game that they're about to add to it. Because even between those 6 years, they were still doing DLC and continuing the story on. And then nothing major that had them, make one of these cinematics for it. So I don't think it's anything that's saying that the game's going to end soon. But again, if it does, I'd be like, well, I mean, it had a fantastic run.
Yeah, I think, to talk about Ben's point and then transition to something that really stuck out to me. I do believe this is ramping down, not like in the next 6 months, but in the next couple of years, because I do believe firmly that Disney wants to do things in the Old Republic era. And so they're going to kind of want to claim that title for themselves. But I imagine they're still making good money. To Ben's point, I know it's one of the better performing games at this time. Still has good support from the community as well as the creators. One thing I really like about the cinematic, guys, is Malgus in this cinematic is portrayed as someone outside of the two ideologies. When he goes on his little monologue, he talks about the problems with the Sith and the Jedi, which I really enjoyed. I mean, I know that's, a lot of people look at Malgus and kind of like Jimmy said the other day, he looks a little bit like, it's obvious he's Malak mixed with Vader. I mean, that's exactly the design they were going for. So his design might not be the most original, but I find his presence, and I kind of stopped on this frame here because I thought they did such a good job of showing the wear on him. But I think his physical presence and his intellect, as he's kind of talking, I find to be really engaging for just a small, character that I've only seen in a couple of shorts. And I've started the Deceived book that he's in, so I understand the character dynamic a little bit. But I really enjoyed kind of his temptation of the Padawan, a little bit about like, that's the problem with the Sith and the Jedi. They only, take people who are useful for them and discard the rest. And I like that kind of interesting, what's the word? Jaded figure who's been part of the Sith and is, kind of left it behind. I thought it was really effective. And just again, 6 minutes, I was really hooked, really engaged.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, the way that he is presented in this trailer, first of all, I really enjoyed the fact that it was the most story-driven. Yep. It really made you interested in this DLC and to check it out. To me, he is like by the book, traditionalist, kind of like maverick Sith.
Yeah.
The way Bane was, right? The way Palpatine is, killing off his master. It's in a way, it's like the emo underground culture. The young people who wish to, in an effort to stand out, right? They're saying, I want to be different. I want to express myself differently. I want to be very emotional and out there and nobody tell me what to do. And then eventually it became an underground culture. And then there's so many of like-minded individuals, you sort of lose your individuality in translation in a way. Yeah. So this is what's happening with the Sith here. And Malgus, he's trying to kind of challenge the status quo of the Sith, but then you start finding out that repeatedly all of them trying to do the same and say, no, but I will be the better one. Like Bane did. Hey, no, I've got the right idea now. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I think the best part about Malgus is that he's still around, because when he popped up in the trailer, I wasn't expecting it. I thought with, the Fallen Empire and Eternal Throne, I thought those were going to be something completely different just because it focused on Vitiate so much. I was like, okay, I guess we're done with Malgus. I don't play the game, so I didn't know, but I love that every time he appears, he just looks worse than before.
Yeah, I like that a lot too.
Like every time he just gets the crap beat out of him and he just comes back more machine than anything.
So to correct ourselves real quick, the last DLC was Knights of the Eternal Throne was December 2nd, 2016, but Onslaught was the previous one before this one, which was October 27, 2019.
Okay. I will say the one thing about the cinematic that really threw me off, like nothing horrible. It was just like the lightsabers are so big. Like I don't know if anyone actually like noticed that. No, like even like the size of like the hilts and everything just looks huge.
I felt like the glow effect they put on it made him look giant.
I have a picture I can send you, Josh, if you can throw it up on the screen.
Oh, that looks super neon.
Yeah, it's like super bright. I noticed that as I was watching it live, but
it's very in sync with the prequel, like visual language, right?
I
has
agree.
That style to it.
Yeah, I sent that to you on Twitter now.
All right, I'll pull that up. You know, one thing I'd say before we really transition to tonight's main topic, to the main course, is this to me is another kind of form of Star Wars. I don't know, art. You know, it's a Star Wars cinema in its own regard. These cinematics have kind of carved out their own little space in Star Wars history, and it's so cool to me that a game has kind of crafted their own little narrative. And for fans like me who've never even played the game, I look forward to that. The talent of the artist, the talent of the people behind it. It's really cool. I think it's really unique. And to Jimmy's point, the lightsabers get a little beefy. Like I
was just saying, like
really
just looking
blade,
at like the hilt in her hand looks massive, and like it's not like a problem. I was just like wondering why they did that, because also the fights in this seemed a lot more little like kind of blocky and all that. It felt very like just raw fighting.
I felt it was very raw.
Which I think is great. But looking at it, I was wondering if this was just a design choice, or if this is because, you know, in the game you can play as what I think it's called a Jedi Templar, I believe is what it's called. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong.
I've never played
I just know you can either get just like basically a lightsaber greatsword that's just like huge and two-handed.
Oh, fascinating.
In the MMO? I'm not certain. I just received my first lightsaber, which completely had me nerd out. Surprisingly, the lightsabers feel a little different from the CGI trailer. They look a little thinner in game.
In the actual
and if you look at the rest of the cinematics, like the lightsabers don't look like huge, you know. But I think it's kind of like a nice little callback to, you know, A New Hope and the way how the lightsabers used to be made, how they were really big and really heavy and all that. So I think that's kind of neat. But I think it is just kind of a play of like, hey, this is a character you can play in the game. You can have a giant Wookiee-sized lightsaber.
All right. Well, that was cinematic. We all have reactions. Again, I'd recommend, if you guys haven't checked out Ben playing the game, you can kind of experience the story through Ben. Watch it. I'm on episode 3.
I will channel it, guys. And then eventually the objective is to have you both come into the fold.
I mean, I've played it before. I might just pick it back up just to get on with the story. This is like I know a lot about KOTOR, but the Old Republic is like the one area I know nothing about.
I've read the Revan novel. That's a tie-in. And then I've started Deceived, which has a cinematic itself, which is a phenomenal cinematic. I really like the Deceived cinematic. Amalgus in that one as well. And it's a perfect time. It's actually a really good segue. To think about Star Wars in the future. Star Wars right now is in a place where it's thriving and living big time on Disney Plus. And Disney Plus will continue, and all streaming platforms will continue to prioritize show-based launches. Standalone movies, I don't think are going to be, you know, Disney Plus exclusive movies aren't going to be the case. I think the shows are the future, at least for the next 10 years. And Star Wars is right at home, because we have seen some really successful shows throughout the years. And it got us thinking, the group, as we were chatting this week, you know, visiting what makes a great Star Wars show. That could include not just like the direction, but also animation versus live action. You know, where is it most natural? Where is it having the best ability to tell stories? And so to kick this conversation off, I'm going to ask a very loaded question. And I understand there's flexibility here, and you can explain yourself in a little bit of detail. I'm going to take a moment and go around the triangle. Chat, join us here as well. So let's start off by level setting what has been our favorite, most effective, most impactful Star Wars show right now. I understand some of this can be a little loaded based on number of seasons, and it's only, I get it. But just kind of speak to your answer, and you could add some caveats in there as well. Let's start with Jimmy. Jimmy, what has been your favorite Star Wars show we've gotten? And you can go back. You could take it to Droids and Ewoks. You could take it to the. You could even include
2003 Clone Wars.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could even include 2003 Clone Wars if you want as an example of like a phenomenal show that's not really canon, but
I mean,
whatever.
It was pretty great.
Yeah, it was. Great.
No, my favorite still to this day is Rebels. Just because.
Tell us, yeah, why?
So when it comes to the fight between Rebels and Clone Wars and which one is better, I always go with Rebels just because I like that it's more of a narrative story. Like we stay with the same group throughout all 4. Wait for me to come back here. We stay with the same group for all 4 seasons, whereas, while Clone Wars is amazing, there's so many characters and we get so many different story arcs through each season that goes to different sides, Yeah. And I mean, not that it's a problem. I just like the more close-knit relationship you get with Rebels. So like I feel more of a bond to those characters, which is why the later, seasons 3 and 4, it gets very tough and very emotional. And I think it just built for a great story.
Yeah. All right, Ben. And I see Chad already telling me I'm asking a loaded question. It's a hard one. I know it is. But where are you at, Ben? Do you have any thoughts here?
It's like I'm racing inside my mind. Like, do I go to the one that it's objectively I think is the best one, or which I lean towards the most, or is it my personal favorite? I'm gonna
Bold
go.
Of you to say objectively.
To the extent of that is possible to be objective. Obviously, we can't be, but I would say the Bad Batch.
Ooh.
Because it focuses on primarily on an entirely new cast, aside obviously from Tarkin, aside from few key characters that are sort of there in the periphery, but you don't even see much of the in the way of the Inquisitors. You don't see any prominent clone era clones. Obviously, we see Rex a little bit, but to be able to create a whole ensemble of brand new characters in the forefront of it, right, from Sid to the entire Bad Batch, to the Omega, and to entice us in such a wholesome story. It's just I felt like it was flawless. Each and every episode was like a jigsaw puzzle piece coming into it. Nothing was wasted. It was so economic with its story. And whether something felt like it doesn't pertain immediately to the overall plot, it still dwelled somewhere. It showed us an interesting world. It helped develop the characters in a way. It's like micromanaging every single detail, and it's signature Dave Filoni of trying to build it to something greater. And I think he went against all the odds. And for people probably expecting some kind of like a rousing cliffhanger sort of ending, he went with something very traditional and tried, but so effective with that Camino last episode that I just couldn't wait for more. And it wasn't the hype factor. It was the strength of the storyline.
Yep.
It did exactly what you said you wanted Boba Fett to do. Give us a tragedy, but don't give us time to recover from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like leave us in a spot. We didn't script this at all, but I absolutely love that what you guys have said and what basically exclusively I've seen in chat so far is all. And let me tell you my answer first before I make this parallel. So this is a really tough question. To me, the Bad Batch is the best parts of the Clone Wars. Like the best constructed pieces, like the way it's framed, it reminds me of the strongest moments of the Clone Wars without the same kind of, to me, connection to that prequel era I love very tightly. So for me, my favorite Star Wars show is the Clone Wars. But I think Blue Milk Mama said earlier, it's a very challenging thing to say Clone Wars because it's such a long show with a varied rate of success. So I'll say the last season, and there are episodes throughout, but the last season of the Clone Wars is just near and dear to my heart. I absolutely think that's phenomenal. It's just a beautiful conclusion. Last year it was enhanced to me even more when I watched kind of the super cut with Revenge of the Sith cut with the Siege of Mandalore. And I know to some people that's jarring to go from animation to live action, but seeing that full story to me, as someone who's a huge prequel fan, it's like, chef's kiss. I really love that. I really was tempted to go with Visions because I think Visions, you can't, like, that's the problem, is Visions isn't a show in the same way the other ones is. So it feels kind of like it's on its own category, but I think Visions was that good.
Definitely.
If you had a standalone show of like The Ninth Jedi or The Elder or The Duel or The Village Bride, I could see it easily being the best Star Wars show we've ever
Village
gotten.
Bride.
And so what's phenomenal here about this unplanned thing is what Jimmy and Ben said and what 90% of chat had. I haven't even seen someone say otherwise. It's the animation. Like that's what everyone likes. It's the best shows. And you might say, well, we don't have as many live action shows. And that's true. But you would think that live action being as predominant in mainstream as it is, like live action is kind of the standard we judge things by as a culture, at least here in the West. And we have big name actors and big budgets and Disney behind it. And we've had 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. We've had Luke literally brought back from the past with the modern day technology. You would think it's impossible for it to not be at the top. But there's something about Star Wars animation that's done so well and told so effectively to me. I just find it fascinating that it can be so successful in a less famous, I'm putting air quotes here, a less famous medium here in the West. We do consider our live action to be a higher standard than our animated. That's kind of typically the stereotype. I know a lot of my friends who've not watched any of the animated shows because they're for kids, right? They haven't watched. That's kind of the mindset. It's like, oh, well, those are for kids. I'll watch The Mandalorian. But the standard where Star Wars excels to me is animation. And I think that's really fascinating. And I hope that Disney understands that. And so I've seen people in chat talk about Bad Batch season 2, and we're getting it this year. We're very excited. But there's a lot of opportunities for other stories in animation. And I just find it so fascinating that with 9 times out of 10, when you ask someone their favorite Star Wars show, maybe even favorite Star Wars property, animation gets brought up in that category. What do you guys think about that? Let's start with Ben, someone who knows the animation field, I think, better than most.
I think, guys, what really, really makes animation successful, at least the 3 major shows that we got. Somebody mentioned Forces of Destiny and the Lego animation, which a lot of fans adore that. In general, I think animation works because is just the power of storytelling. It's undeniable. When you have well-written, well-thought-out show with strong characters, with human emotions and human conflicts, you can't help but gravitate to it. You just feel for those people. You put yourself in their shoes. You experience it with them. And I think the second front is, which I'm so happy that when I finished graduating from School of Visual Arts, I wanted to be an animator. And in 2007, that same year, Disney closed their doors to traditional studios. They shut it down. And people were like, you are the leaders in the world of animation. What are you doing? The whole world will change, the world of arts. But now Disney is back full circle. And yes, even though most of the stuff they produce is CGI, it's still animation. And it's a different subgroup of animation. And they're at the forefront of it. And what they're doing is animation allows you to pull and stretch reality and stylize it and make it interesting. And it's also a perfect a breeding ground for innovation and experimentation. Like with the Visions, Josh, you mentioned it. When you look at something like Duel or Ninth Jedi, it's playful and it has that energy that it contains that sometimes big budget live action show just doesn't permit itself to be.
Yeah,
it doesn't have that same energy. It's not playful enough.
Exactly. Jimmy?
I think the thing that makes the animation more successful really is just the amount of limitations you have with animation is very slim when compared to live action. You don't have to worry about if you're going to shoot on location or shoot in a studio. If you got to book studio time, you can make all of that stuff and it's going to be much less of a hassle. I can just go out and create Camino in a computer. I can create Tatooine in a computer. Yes, it's not easy. And yes, it still takes money.
Yeah.
But it's much more, I think it's more doable than actually going to a location to shoot and bring in all the extras, all the actors. And then with the storytelling aspect, again, there's hardly any limits to how many characters you can put on screen. It's so much easier to do.
Practically, it makes sense.
And I think and I think one of the reasons a lot of the animated shows were so successful is because of what they were playing off of, like you said, Ben, your favorite's The Bad Batch. It is phenomenal. It is playing off of the Clone Wars, though, and Clone Wars is your favorite, Josh, but it is playing off of the prequel trilogy. So it's telling stories that we wanted to hear, Rebels is a little different, but I think because, one of the things that I think Rebels could do that The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett could not do is you gave us all of the characters at once, and then we were able to just attach to them quickly. Whereas in The Mandalorian, we have all these brand new characters. It was still the same thing with Rebels. It was all brand new characters, but with The Mandalorian, you brought them in one at a time. It was very slow. But I also think that's because with live action, the limitations limit them to episode counts. Because, every season of Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Rebels is like, between 19 and 24 episodes.
Yeah.
much more time for storytelling, much more time for
Yep.
character growth. And then you get The Mandalorian, which is what, 7 to 8 episodes, and then 7 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, and only 4 episodes of Kenobi. It's really hard.
It is. Because you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head there on one of your points about the logistics, Jimmy. You know, it is logistically speaking very hard to tell the same scale and duration of a story in live action. And even if you have the budget, like, you know, Lord of the Rings has this huge budget, you'll have people who, and Jimmy and I talked about this offline, like,
Yeah.
there's CGI in the new Lord of the Rings trailer, which I don't mind at all, but a lot of people don't enjoy that. And we're not going to get into that. But the point is that animation, you're not limited by that. You know, you can tell those big scale stories. And and especially, I mean, guys, the quality of Disney animation, especially in the Bad Batch, is just phenomenal. I mean, you go back and you watch even season 1 of the Clone Wars, the gap is just astronomical.
And
Quick
really,
question, guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Did you notice that transitional point in terms of that level of animation from Clone Wars to Rebels, or did it seem like just seamless to you, just like it's the same similar type of thing?
oh, this is a good question, because for me, I didn't watch any of the animated shows. I didn't think they were for kids. I just didn't like the animation of any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Clone Wars was out, and I catched a couple episodes when it was airing on Cartoon Network, and I was just like, it's whatever.
Jim, no, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is when you transitioned from Clone Wars and
Oh.
you went into Rebels, did you see any difference between animation? Like it was upgraded, downgraded?
No, because I watched Rebels first.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
there you go.
Yeah, that was I was trying to get to that point because I had gotten sick one night, and I was like, I was just gonna throw something on. So I started watching Rebels, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And then I saw online everyone was complaining about the difference in the animation styles. I'm like, guys, come on. They're like, the lightsabers are too thin. I was like, well, tell that to Ralph McQuarrie. This is literally Rebels is
It
based
is,
off
it
of
is.
Ralph McQuarrie's original artwork. I don't want to hear anything.
It is. It's
Zeb is literally the original artwork for Chewbacca.
Chewbacca. Yeah, he is just Chewbacca.
Like, come on, you know?
I think for me, to your point, Ben, to maybe take the bait a little bit, I did consider it a downgrade. I know it's stylized differently, but like when you compare season 7 of the, and this might not be fair, but season 7 of the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch is to me better animation. It's different. Now it's different. I don't think Rebels looks bad. It's a different style, and I just think that this might sound silly, but because I just knocked people for having this attitude, but Rebels to me looks more like a kid show. It looks like stylized and color palette wise to me, for whatever reason, even though I'm rewatching it right now, it reads more like a kid show. Even though I find it to be an extremely successful and enjoyable show. For some reason, Bad Batch reads more of an adult show. And I don't know why. I have no technical.
Can I address that a little bit very quickly?
You can.
I think it's a very interesting observation, and I'm pretty sure you're not alone in this, because when you look at the character models of the Rebels, especially early seasons, everything is deliberately more rounded. Even when you look at Ezra Bridges' hair, the points of his hair are more on, which is a signature Disney style, which they were saying that psychologically, when you present something to children and it has fewer angular shapes, it immediately is more attractive to kids. And also the color palette, right? When we go from, obviously the different seasons of Clone Wars had colorful planets and stuff, but overall it started getting darker and darker as we got into like the Death Troopers and Maul coming back and Dathomir and all that stuff. But the Rebels we're talking about, you look at the color palette, it's a lot more Disney oriented.
And I do think like these shows are, they are made for kids. Star Wars was made for kids. And I think it's just depending on the audience they're trying to reach, you know, especially with Resistance of all things. Like I've watched a couple episodes of the first season. It's not really my thing. I might go back and finish it at some point, but it is really directed towards kids. You know, it's a lot of fun. It is super colorful and super shiny. So it is easy to catch attention. You know, it is a step up from Rebels as far as the animation goes, because they're able to add that shine and make it look all nice and new. And it helps kids that grew up, like, you know, little kids that are seeing, you know, the sequel trilogy as their first trilogy, seeing that, that's eye candy to them.
I didn't appreciate Resistance for one thing, and just one aspect of the show that I appreciate. I thought the characters were pretty lovable and had pretty strong writing, but I don't like when Japanese studios do that and then American studios try to replicate that, where they obviously know the popularity of anime and they create this cel-shaded look, like a flat-looking 3D model. It's just looked too plastic. Some shows were able to do it more successfully, Like
Mhm.
the Berserk later seasons started kind of sort of eyeballing it, but
Yeah.
then when we see it in the Star Wars Visions, the duel, it just took it home. It feels
Oh
like a
yeah.
moving manga,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I mean, there are aspects of it that I think work really well. Like when they were trying to like put the shine on like metallic stuff, like that really
Yeah,
made it pop. Because
that's
I
a good
know,
point.
I don't know the character's name, but there's another stormtrooper that's similar to Phasma. He has gold armor, and
Oh
like
yeah.
that glimmer shine effect made it look really great.
I think, for me, as we take a bird's eye view, as we step out and look at the landscape, one thing that I'm calling out here is even in our discourse about the shows, there seems to be such almost more of an optimistic, like more of a rose-colored glass with animation, and I don't know if that's just what the medium allows, but we seem to be a lot less critical and a lot more focused on the best pieces of it. And I find even the general audience to be less nitpicky. Like during Bad Batch, it spanned months because it's so many episodes. And there were some episodes that were kind of fillery or not the most engaging, but even in those episodes I found community to be relatively positive or neutral on those. And even when there are episodes that felt kind of boring, people just didn't really make a big deal about it. But you'll see something like Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett, where the lows seem to be put under such a larger microscope, by myself included. I mean, I'm guilty of doing that. And finding the flaws and looking for the flaws so much more. Why is it that we, when we watch Star Wars live action, seem to have our critic glasses on more than we watch animation? Or am I crazy? What do you guys think about that? It's something that I've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks now that the Book of Boba Fett is wrapped up.
I think a lot of it is our own fault because when they announce a new Star Wars project, like when The Force Awakens was announced, everyone had the highest expectations. And
Guilt as charged.
I mean, I think we all are.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the problem, because you're setting the standard way impossibly high. So when they come out with a product that is genuinely good, we're like, nope, it wasn't Luke flipping through the air and fighting 8 Sith at one, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been cool, but
Yeah.
Because we're expecting so much, like every time a new project, like when the High Republic was getting ready to be announced, everyone thought it was going to be a rehash of the Old Republic. Everyone was just like, we want Revan, we want Malik, we want this, we want I'm like, no, you're setting yourself up for failure, because these stories could eventually come. They're not coming right now. They're focused on other things.
And as we, Ben does a good job about this in a lot of our videos and these streams as well. He talks about having his expectations set pretty earnestly for any of these projects. No expectations at all. Why, regardless of expectations, it does seem when an animation show has a misstep, we don't view it as harshly as a live action show. Do you agree with that statement, Ben? Do you feel like we're harsher?
I sort of do. I think, honestly, when we discuss that kind of talk, it's honestly is just skin deep. It's background noise, and it's always the social media community. I'm not saying that voice is not valid, but I'm saying it represents a vast minority of average Star Wars fan, of average moviegoers, and people who digest this content. How many people have the time to sit down on Facebook and gruel down to it and get into nitpicking details and then debate over it? I think in general, when you have a strong story and strong characters, I keep coming back to it. It evens out everything. It makes people sway this side of the pendulum or that side of the pendulum. And I think Mandalorian, live action show or not, took off with people because it was a brand new character, so people couldn't take a sense of ownership with it and say, well, because it's about Darth Vader, I expect A, B, C, and D. Guys, we just talked about Kenobi show last podcast, right? Just because it's a Kenobi show, I expect Tatooine, young Luke Skywalker, blah, 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 blah. You start listing things off, check marking them. You can't do it with a brand new character, and you sort of like let go of the wheel and you let it, you enjoy the ride. And that happens a lot more often in animation. It seems like they're more keen on exploring the unexplored, the small little tiny pockets of Star Wars with the show. But there is a different set of expectations from fans and a different set of responsibilities and financial investment when it comes to live action shows, because now it's Kenobi. Now it has to be big and cinematic and has to blow everybody away across the board. I feel like sometimes it takes itself a little bit too seriously. animation is more playful.
I like that. I think that's well said. And conveniently, I think it segues kind of into what's next for Star Wars television. What's literally next is Kenobi. That's what's literally next.
Yeah.
So from an actual, it's Kenobi, and the expectations are sky high. I wonder, with Book of Boba Fett, we've talked about it a lot on this channel. I've made a video alone. I don't think there's anything more to cover here. There were some good moments. I think we all have kind of varying final scores on it. But there were moments I really enjoyed, moments I didn't. Overall, I think there was a lot of things, a lot of small tweaks I think they could have made to make a more effective show. But what do I know? That's just my kind of read on the situation as someone outside of the industry.
Just no, you're just a Disney shill.
Yeah. But with Kenobi on the horizon, with expectations high, does the impact of Book of Boba Fett kind of being meh? Does that impact our excitement for Kenobi?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely does. Because I dislike when fans do that, when they rally behind a filmmaker like Jon Favreau. You guys know my stance on the director, but this conversation is not about me, right? We're discussing fandom.
Right.
When fans rally behind the director, and once again, he manages to please them and provide them with interesting entertainment for 2 seasons in a row, then people sort of kind of start attributing certain things to him. It's like, he's our guy. And then he goes and makes something like the Book of Boba Fett, which it seems to be like it took with a lot of fans. It had humongous viewership. Some fans really liked it, but those same fans behind The Mandalorian, they're suddenly on the other side now. Like, that's not what I was looking for. Maybe he's not the guy. It's like, stop doing that. He's working hard. He's trying his best. Sometimes it misfires. So what? But because we've seen it, we can't unsee it. And we saw Book of Boba Fett, and we saw an obvious glaring difference of quality of fan response in general, right? And when you look at this and you say, okay, so here is a Kenobi show. Let me take a look who's behind it. You can't help but look at past credentials or past efforts and compare. That's how our minds work. I'm always going to measure and compare. Oh, is this water hot or cold? Am I going to burn my lips if I try to drink it?
We can't help it. Yeah.
What do you think, Jen?
I think, I enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett. It wasn't fantastic, but I had fun watching it, and I'd watch it again. I don't think it impacts my excitement for Kenobi because I'm just excited for it. And I don't think unless they were going to come out and say Ewan McGregor is in one episode, I'd be like, okay, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I don't think I'd be going straight to saying, well, Jon Favreau's not the guy for Star Wars anymore. No,
I wouldn't.
No, I am excited for Kenobi, and I don't think having one bad show means the rest of them are going to be bad. There are going to be fans that are going to say, they'll be like, yeah, Star Wars hasn't been the same since Mandalorian season 1. There's going to be those people that say that. I just think we need to start truly tempering our expectations. Yes, just because Obi-Wan could be in his hut on Tatooine talking to a blue holographic version of the ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn, just because that's a possibility does not mean you should expect it to happen. Yeah. I want it to happen. I'm not expecting it to.
I think for me, the thing about Kenobi is the standard expected is higher for Kenobi. We've talked about this before, and I think Ben did a good job there saying because you have Kenobi and there's an immediate assumed weight to the show, right? We have this iconic character. We have this beloved actor in Ewan McGregor returning. So the expectations for the show are higher than anything that's come before. I would probably say outside of The Force Awakens, I would say The Force Awakens, the hype was pretty strong, but I think this even carries higher expectations. I think when The Force Awakens came out, I'm not sure the expectations were high. The excitement was high, but I don't think people were saying, oh, this is going to be amazing. I think people were excited and hopeful. I think with Kenobi, the expectations are high. You have this actor that's beloved, you have this character that's cherished, and now we have to find a way to slot it in and do it effectively. I think the only, and I put, concern loosely, I think miniseries are challenging, I think, to execute well. You have 4 episodes. How do they break the time up? How do they leave good cuts that it feels not like they extended a 2-hour movie out, but they actually, had good story to tell? I think that's the delicate balance here. When you have a movie, You have that kind of format. You have that 2.5 hour screen time. When you kind of extend it by that hour and a half, I do kind of wonder, did we have the story here, or do we just want to fill 4 episodes? That's the only, I think, one thing I see today that does have me a little bit like, how are we going to do that effectively, using an effective use of time? And this goes back to a point on the animation. They have more freedom, I think, in length of storytelling, right? And so you have a lot more time to let these stories marinate and grow. 4 episodes miniseries, I don't know. I'll be curious to see how they execute it. But to me, I think and this is just me personally, I think it's hard to execute a 4 episode miniseries compared to like an 8 episode show. But I don't know.
I kind of think of it differently. I think of it as an event. And honestly, the size, the length, the format does not matter. Anything can be turned to gold in hands of a capable storyteller, powerful storyteller. We briefly talked about John Jackson Miller's Kenobi book, Jim and I. We spoke about it off screen. I think we spoke about it on the podcast a little bit here and there. But I'll tell you one thing that the Kenobi show can't be. It can't be that book. Because when you're limiting yourself by 4 episodes, and once again, returning to what you said earlier, Jim, the legacy of Star Wars prequels and legacy of this character, it's sort of laid out for you. You have the blueprint. You know exactly what you need to do. You need to have some kind of reference to Qui-Gon Jinn's making it from another realm of the Force. You need to have to see the broken side of Kenobi and how he's dealing with PTSD with this after the Order 66 and how he failed Anakin. That heartbreaking scene, right? He's like, Anakin, I have failed you. We need to see all of that. You can't be arbitrary with these things. Like, well, no, I'm going to take a new spin with this, and it's going to be kind of different. His hair going to be a little bit of this way, and he's actually going to go off Tatooine on a different mission. That's what the novel was. And I'm not trying to knock it or be like too negative about it. It didn't seem to address the most crucial parts of his character, and the show can't afford that.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you in that. And I think, that going forward with new shows that like the future shows that haven't even been announced yet, like I'm not even looking at a droid story or Lando, but like if we get to the point where they finally announce a movie or a show based in the Old Republic, even then the expectations are just going to be way too high.
Yeah.
Because no matter what they put out, it's not going to satisfy.
To me, I'm very, if I understand correctly, and we might get disproven, I'm pretty optimistic on the fact that we have one director for the whole thing. That's how I understand it. I could be wrong. I really like that unified voice. Not that there weren't talented directors throughout Mandalorian and throughout Book of Boba Fett. It's about that consistency. And when you're telling a real character, a character-driven piece about one character at this point, the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett have a little more flexibility to switch directors because they're talking about different characters and it's more of this like adventure. But with Kenobi, to me, I think the one consistent voice and directing will be very important. I think it'll be very important.
Definitely.
So what's the dream show, guys? Let's wrap out this topic on what is the perfect formula. What is your formula? If Disney gets the green light tomorrow and they say, Ben, how would you craft the show for us? How would you style it? What story would you want to tell? What are your ideas? I want to hear.
I'm in the director's seat, right?
Yeah.
What's my budget? Billions? Millions? Why have millions?
Yeah.
You could have billions where you can have.
You got
millions.
that Amazon Lord of the Rings budget,
right?
100 million.
I think the best route always to go, which was a proven formula and it worked every time when those things were new and fresh in everybody's mind. Completely new timeline, completely new characters, and none of the it's like poetry, it rhymes nonsense. Don't try to take a step back, analyze what worked before and try to replicate it, like with the original trilogy, which argument is to be made every consequent Star Wars effort, prequels, sequels, shows, books, everything, try to replicate the glory of the original trilogy. Don't do that. Go into a completely different route. A lot of Star Wars Legends authors were bold enough not to only switch up the formula, but to switch up the genres. Sometimes they would tell you a thriller in the Star Wars universe. Sometimes they would tell you a story without the Jedi, with just like gunslinging Han Solo type of characters. I think the most, at the same time, safe and the most bold route to go together in one is to be entirely different and unattached to what George Lucas has done or what other creators have tried to do. That's my take on it.
I love it. I think it's a great idea.
How about you, Jim? What do you think?
I got two ideas to come to mind. And first off, I want to say thank you for that Austin Powers reference, because now a billion is more than a million numbnuts will be stuck in my head for the rest of the night. I can think of two shows that I'd like to do. I would either, if I wanted to stick with some fairly familiar ground, I would do a show in the Chiss Ascendancy talking about the fall of Scylla and what happened to the planet and why they went to war with each other. Or I would stick with the main timeline and shoot ahead 5,000 years. Yes, 5,000.
Forward.
Yeah, as far away from it as we can possibly get into the future, because that's always what's been so interesting to me. Like, everyone wants to go back to the Old Republic or before that. And while that is very cool, we've seen it in Legends before. We know what happens. Even in Legends, we only got up to about 170 years after the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the Legacy, right?
Yeah, with Legacy.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Less than 200 years, 160 or 70 years.
So, let's go well past that. I understand
there'll be wars in there in the future.
I don't know what the technology will be like, but it'll probably still be relatively similar. It doesn't seem to change that much. But just 5,000 years of separation, no one's going to talk about the events of this.
Yeah.
And, and it still could be. And I would love to throw a line in there like that of a character referring to someone's like, oh, careful, you might go back to that great old tale of the horrors of that Darth Vader. And he'd be like, he's no one.
Yeah, like a distant.
Someone could mention him, but I would want that main character to throw it off like it doesn't matter, because fans would get really mad about it. You'd have to realize, I would want a character like that to try to look past what's come well before his time.
Guys, Jim's ideas are so hot, YouTube can't process it yet.
My internet's just garbage. I'm sorry.
They freeze. They're like, whoa, cut his feed. We're taking that idea. Yeah.
Every time.
Let's copyright
that. You guys have said something very similar, and it's something far away from what we know today. If you go in the past, you're limited by what's come after, and if you go to the future, you have a lot more creative freedom. And I agree, but I'll pick something to not just totally copy you guys, even though I think your ideas are great. There's a couple different things I could see them doing. I think the Old Republic or High Republic animated show is a good fit. I think you could tell really engaging stories via animation in two older eras with some really, you don't have to follow the exact same characters that we see in the Old Republic game or the High Republic novels or comics. You could establish new characters in those eras and tell a 5 to 6 season animated show. I think that'd be a really, really good idea. One other caveat that you guys know, I'm a sucker for this. I'd really like to spend some more time on Mandalore as its own planet. I think they have a really fun culture that is very important in a lot of extended Star Wars content. And so maybe going back and seeing, the history of Mandalore would be really fun. You can kind of see the legacy there. It's something that's alluded to so much. What they do with Mandalore a lot is, in canon especially, is they tease you with Mandalore. They're kind of like, oh, this is what happened there. This is what happened. It's like they kind of keep it as this mystic place, which might actually be a strength. But I could see that being a fun era, just to kind of see how it started, see what the people were like, the different clans. It could be really fun.
Yeah.
I want to know what your guys' opinion on this is. When it comes to these shows and new movies coming out, there's always the group of people saying, give me a horror, rated R, terrifying, gore, graphic Star Wars. Oh,
we had a call for horror in the chat. We had a call for horror here in the chat.
Well, how about that? I just want to know why. What are we missing?
It's different. That's why.
Different.
That's why.
People like a different flavor. Like
I think
today
that's
I have
it.
vanilla ice cream.
Different.
Tomorrow I want to have strawberry.
That's okay.
I agree with and this is the most cliche one, but I'm gonna go with my boy here. I would like a villain's point of view story. You guys know I'm a sucker for the dark side, but like, we haven't really had a story that's really centered on a villain.
By the way, Josh and Jim, both of you guys, that conversation that you just started, those different genres and why go there, 10 books from now in the new Jedi Order, we'll get to that conversation.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, if there's something I'm clearly missing, like, absolutely, but just like from what we've seen so far with, even with PG and PG-13 ratings, like seeing Anakin set on fire, that's pretty graphic.
Oh, I agree.
So like, what could be added with the concept?
I think what you're questioning,
rating?
Josh, I think what Jim is questioning is like, do fans really want to upset the formula of Star Wars? Because we do have that established hero's journey formula. Like, do we really need to change that around?
I would say I view the R rated and the horror It's two different conversations. So let me use the Batman. You guys on the Batman chill here, chilling hard for this new movie. Hashtag the Batman. But a lot of people were like, "Oh, it should be rated R. It's going to be rated PG-13." I do not believe R is required to tell a mature story. I wanted to make that point clear. I think you can tell a very mature adult story without an R rating. So that's one point I wanted to make to kind of line up with Jim. One thing that really sticks out to me, like in a horror sense, is could you tell a story that takes place in the Star Wars universe, but it feels like it abides by the rules that have been set by movies and projects before it, but it's just totally different. It's people on a spaceship with the drain gear loose, and there's no Jedi coming to save them. It's just like this is a sci-fi movie that happens to take place in the Star Wars universe
that already exists.
Yeah. Well, but like
there's a book like that.
Right. There is, but you get my point. Like you could do a movie like that could be it's kind of like how Rogue One is very Star Wars. It's obviously super connected to the Skywalker trilogy, but it feels like, oh, it's like its own kind of war movie here in that era. Something like that, where you tell a genre piece with the rules of Star Wars. That's what I could see being.
Yeah, and I think I could repurpose that question mainly just towards the R rating, because horror in Star Wars works. There are two books, one of which is a great example. The other,
There's also the Clone Wars arc on Geonosis that gets kind of.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that homage to the aliens when they go into the General.
But like awesome. the original Death Troopers book is fantastic and a great representation of horror in Star Wars. Do you know anything about it?
I know I have it. I know it has like a zombie-like theme in there.
Yeah.
Let me come back. Quickest rundown of that book ever. A prison barge is stuck in deep space with a damaged hyperdrive when they come across a Star Destroyer. They ask for help. The Star Destroyer refuses to answer their calls, only to find out that a virus has gotten loose on the Star Destroyer, turning them all into zombies.
Yeah.
It could work. It works. It's a great book. Fantastic. The other one, Red Harvest.
Oh, with the zombie
zombies, Sith Lords. There's literally a line from Taken in that book.
When I think of horror in Star Wars, what comes to my mind is like more recently, like Into the Dark was not a horror by any means, but Claudia Gray was obviously inspired by Alien. There's a lot in that book that's supposed to be very alien. That's with the dragon gear, right? So there's like shades of horror. And then you could do kind of different with it. Lost Tribes of the Sith is kind of like a
like ghost stories.
Yeah, it's kind of little, it's got that kind of creepy, not horror like slasher, but horror and kind of like its own kind of a psychological thriller kind of. Regardless, I think what people are looking for is exactly what you two called out, which is something new. That's why we're High Republic fans here, even though it's old, it at least feels different. And we got big Legends fans here, as we know. Timeline is a huge Legends guy, and Jimmy and I have started to read the new Jedi Order, so we are expanding our knowledge as well.
I'll also agree with Blue Milk Mama by saying Lost Stars would make a great miniseries.
Yeah,
I would give my kidneys for that.
We'll need one.
I'll give both of them. That's how bad I want it.
Amazing book.
At the end of the day, I think what we all agree, well, maybe people don't agree, but what I think to me is pretty clear is the future of Star Wars is going to lean heavily on shows. It's going to lean heavily on Disney Plus shows and content like that. Yeah. And I think the animation is something that doesn't maybe get, like the Bad Batch could get a trailer tomorrow, and outside of like hardcore Star Wars fans, like my friends who aren't big Star Wars guys would not pay any attention to it. Kenobi trailer launches tomorrow, the whole world's gonna blow up. But I hope that as the like even Marvel getting What If, even though I don't want a What If show for Star Wars, I'm not interested in that. I'm hoping shows like What If expand casual fans' minds to what's possible in animation, and like me, who it took a while to embrace it. Once they dive in, they realize how much they were missing. And that's kind of what I'd like to see over the next couple of years. And I think Tale of the Jedi that they're hinting at, I do believe that's a real thing. I believe Tales of the Jedi is a real thing. I believe it's going to be animated. That's my prediction. I could be wrong, but what do I know? It's Ben's. It's the ultimate decision for Ben if he can like Star Wars.
I'm looking forward to diving into Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah. Yes, someone gifted us with some Tales of the Jedi stuff recently.
I can't wait till you guys read it and we sit down. I want the whole podcast just about the.
We hopped in a call and we figured out a way to open it up and get it working. We're like, ooh, all right, cool.
Yeah, we had to get your files open. Like it took us a second to get them
Oh.
Took us
Well,
on a-
I'm more modernized than you guys are. Which is
You're the
surprising.
master.
I'm
You
a
with
dinosaur
your
here.
win and your zip files.
Win and zip files. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Whoa, slow down, slow down.
Meanwhile, I'm over here on After Effects making
Yeah,
stuff that
exactly.
Ben can't do.
Exactly. Well, it's a fun conversation, guys. Something we'll continue to revisit. Kenobi is going to be a big deal. The trailer's coming out soon. We're a matter of months away, and we'll be able to kind of see how this fits in the scheme of Star Wars products
Yeah,
going
Definitely.
forward. Let's talk about some new news, some more recent news. We opened up with conversations about obviously the cinematic. If you guys missed that conversation, the general feeling is it was a really great cinematic. They do really great quality animation, really fun. 6 minutes of awesome. If you haven't seen it yet, I went and after I watched it here on the computer, went to my living room, put on my 4K TV and watched it in 4K. It was really good, really clean, really impressive. Credit to everyone who took part in that from just a technical perspective. But there were some other stories this week. As you guys know, I am a sucker for new products, new books. Let's break out a book that was just announced recently. This one is hot off the press. Hot off the press. We have Star Wars.
Ooh.
What is that name, Ben? Do you see the name of that book?
time. Wait. Nobody. I didn't consent.
Are you
to
getting
this.
royalties?
Who's publishing it? Timelines from the time before the High Republic.
The time for the Republic to the
a
fall.
conversation with
Disney.
Disney, man. Something is going on here.
They missed their check in the mail. We're gonna get the complete kind of timeline book here, which could be really cool.
This better be like 700 pages.
I was gonna say, I was about to the same thing. If it's like 55 pages, I'm gonna be a little disappointed. It's got to be a big, chunky novel. I am very excited about.
Ben, I
this.
saw what you just grabbed, and I about ran out of
Uh-huh.
the room to get my copy too.
Oh, you could totally, yeah. We won't miss you for a couple of seconds. It's because we're gonna get there.
I think for me, when it comes to these, what do we call these? Reference novels? Is that the best way to call these?
Yeah.
Encyclopedias, yeah.
Yeah, I really want this to be. First of all, let's just look at the cover here. We have obviously reference to the sequel trilogy. We have Mando, but this is technically Mandalorian as well. Original trilogy, Rogue One, Rebels, we have Solo. We have Revenge of the Sith getting itself on here. We have these are the Coruscant Guard clone
Shock troopers.
Yeah, shock troopers, and then of course High Republic right at the top. Who'd have thought that was coming? This is going to be apparently a definitive kind of guide here. I think it may be like a huge coffee table book. That's what I want. I want it to be like huge and like that's what
because like the DK books and a lot of like the visual dictionaries, they're not
Mhm.
very big.
Yeah, exactly.
Now
I have the Clone Wars on behind me, but I'd like a giant one. That has
the
everything.
biggest one I have. I think it came out in like 2015. It was like one of those complete visual dictionaries of like everything up until the Force Awakens, and that thing is like 12 pounds. Like it's a big book.
Yeah, it's a huge.
Nice.
I hope it's great. I'm excited for books like this. We're also getting, I don't have an official cover up for it because they haven't released it yet. But we're getting an art of the High Republic book they announced in the last stream. So that'll be kind of cool. I'm excited to see what kind of work we get in there. It was announced in the last High Republic show. Also, a number of Phase 2 books. Jimmy and I have done a couple videos on the channel. We have a short. It's like 30 seconds if you want to get a rundown of every single book. There's no covers, so there's not a lot to talk about. No real plot synopsis. But they did announce kind of the first wave of Phase 2 books coming much later this year.
They got pretty cool names, so I'm excited.
They do have some cool names. Go check that out if you guys want to get a little bit of insight there. But anyone who's been to my channel before knows, just by looking behind me, I am a sucker. Disney, people think I'm a Disney shill. I single-handedly keep Disney in business.
I'm pretty sure he does.
Currently working on my helmet collection here.
Oh.
We got the first piece of the I'm building a whole wall. I'm going to put it on the channel when we're done here. We got our Mando helmet that came in last week. More on the way. So Disney,
he's going in, man.
I
replace all those caps in the back with helmets.
So you can see anyone. I got the Lego pieces. We got the Lego pieces here of the ship, and that's going to tie in really well to what was announced this week. Which anyone who knows anything about Star Wars knew that this was one of the must come out of. Oh golly, look at that! There we go. We're getting from the Book of Boba Fett. We're getting the redid fancy Naboo starfighter. I knew this was coming the minute I saw that in the episode. I think if I would have recorded myself, I was like, okay, well, there's a new Lego set. Like they probably planned that just for Lego.
And it comes with a BD unit, yeah,
and a little Grogu. Fantastic. fantastic. Get your wallets out. This is just the best.
But sadly though, this is like a $65 set, isn't it?
Yeah. So for those who are in the Lego game, licensed things on Lego cost a lot more. And so a ship like this, which doesn't have a huge piece count, if it was like a normal non-licensed piece, it'd probably be like a $40 set. You put that Star Wars on it, it's $60 set. I mean, it's just that.
But the size is pretty impressive. I mean, it justifies the price point.
I think so.
I mean, you also got to think, a lot of times people justify the price based on minifigure count. So, you got Mando, you got Pele Motto, Grogu, and BD5. Yeah. I think that's all right. Even though BD5 and Grogu are like the new mini figures that they've been doing. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's still cool.
You can't help but smile when you look at it.
So that little BD is confirmed to be not Cal Kestis.
No, yeah. Version. If you watch the episode with subtitles, it says BD5.
BD5. Okay.
Also, that one is blue and BD1 is red. Even though, yes, in game you can change.
I was going to say in the game.
I got my bases covered. Don't you worry.
Very cool. I do love the set. Jokes aside, I think it's a really great set. They have also added some other really cool pieces to the Lego front. I'm just going to show off for folks. I know not everyone cares about this stuff, but they also added.
That one is so cool.
This is really cool to me. This is the Luke basket. You could kind of get it's not huge for size comparison's sake, but I do really enjoy that it's got this really cool attention to detail with the goggles and the comm. This is just really fun for me. I really enjoy these kind of sets, and
definitely a fun piece.
I saw the concept art for this, or like the concept brick that someone put out, and it had originally they had like a face built into it. It looked terrifying
to me. Like, it's gonna sound stupid, so everyone bear with me. But part of Star Wars is like the collecting. It's kind of fun. Like, I remember vividly, and Ben's heard me talk about this when Revenge of the Sith came out at the Walmart close to my house. They put a tent out front of the store, like a full tent in the parking lot, where it was just all of the Star Wars merch because it was going insane during the prequel.
Wow.
And I remember going through with my dad. I remember I bought the DK Encyclopedia for Revenge of the Sith. I remember I had the Lego set with the with Grievous's wheel with his
the Grievous chase. Yeah. I had that too.
I probably have it behind me in the closet just because I've kept that set.
Guys, tiny trip down the memory lane, just relating to what you were saying about the toys, just to give you that little picture. So I was turning 19 when Phantom Menace came out, and I went to see it on 42nd Street in Times Square with my 12-year-old brother. On that date, and from that day forward until 2006, until Revenge of the Sith was coming out, everywhere you would go in the city, you saw kids everywhere with Star Wars toys. McDonald's, Burger King, any place you went to, it's like toy lightsaber, toy little mini lunch, kind of lunchbox or whatever. Toys were like crazy during prequel era.
Oh yeah. So I saw a post about that. I think it was in a Facebook group. Someone was like, the toy aisle now versus the toy aisle in 1999.
I saw that. Yeah,
you saw that too. Because I
remember those days.
Because it's true. Because I go down the toy aisle every now and then, and I'm like, what kind of Star Wars stuff they got out? And there's like 3 lightsabers and a Mandalorian action figure. I'm like, man, where's all this stuff?
There was so much. I remember it vividly. I was such a fan. And that's probably a big reason why. I know it's silly, but one of the reasons that era in that movie means so much to me is because I was a kid when that came out. It was so exciting.
I remember my favorite thing about it was because I subscribed and got the Lego catalogs every month.
Yeah.
And I remember I got the one for Revenge of the Sith, and the middle of the magazine had a centerfold that came out, and it was just all of the Revenge of the Sith sets, all on one page. Awesome. And it was just the coolest thing to just sit there and look at.
That is awesome. That's so much fun.
Oh, yeah. Real quick in the chat. Did anyone have those watches from Burger King? I did. I had 3 of them.
That's hilarious.
Did you save any of them?
I have them around here somewhere. Yeah.
Nice. That's great.
That's dope.
That's great. Speaking of some fun, this one, I really like this. I'll share this little nugget with you guys. So as everyone knows, we talked about at the beginning of the show, very topical, big fan of Visions. And guess what you can pre-order now on Target? You can get the twins. You can get the twins.
So what's your cut with Disney? What's the percentage?
Hey.
It's probably like 4%.
I pay them so much for me to enjoy looking at the stuff they make.
Right.
It is.
Didn't they just put out a new one for the Duel as well? Like
Gail
showed me yesterday. They had like one with a T-shirt too.
Oh, I guess you might be asking about. Sorry, it's live, guys. I gotta find it. Okay. There we go. Let's get
that
it.
was dope.
Yeah, I love this little
really
set.
Cool.
this little combo set right
That's
here
super cool.
is phenomenal.
It reminds me of something. Let me see if I can find it to this particular graphic. I did a little something before Obi-Wan Kenobi show was announced.
I absolutely love the little tiny. Love that he's holding the sword or the little bamboo stick. It's fantastic.
I have to get this because I'm still kicking myself for not getting. They did a Funko release where it was a Funko shirt for Batman Beyond, and I never got it. And like they didn't even make a Funko Pop for him. It was just the shirt, and I want it so bad. So I have to get this to make up for it.
Batman Beyond, a classic.
Perfect
I love this.
show.
You could pre-order it on Target. It's like 20. Like I know it sounds like a lot, but like this little set here is $25. It take up a nice little spot.
They're fairly big. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to put it on your desk, put it on your table, put it somewhere. I could absolutely see taking this, putting it like at my office. A little.
How much for the shirt and the pop?
Oh, that's a good question. I can find out for us here in a second.
Because I'm gonna need that.
It is really cool. I know that some fans aren't into this side as much, but I enjoy it. I think it's fun to kind of see the opportunities. The Funko plus the shirt's only $25 as well.
Hey, that's great. That's a great deal.
Good. It's pretty cool. So thanks for humoring me, guys. As we look at this, I got one more. I got the big boy.
All right.
I got the big boy.
Ooh.
This diorama coming to Sideshow. They haven't released the price yet. You can get on the list right now for updates on it, but this is just really.
This is gonna be like $700.
It could be very expensive.
That looks sick.
That is gorgeous.
But it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic.
All right, I found the picture, Josh. I'm gonna Twitter send it to you.
Okay.
That particular Kenobi thing that you just showed reminded me a great deal of. This is a little piece that I just threw out there, and a lot of fans across Facebook groups just enjoyed it. I was like, okay, cool. Self-ad look here, guys. Shameless self-plug.
Hey, you're allowed to do it. Let's open it up. Oh, yep. I got it ready to go. Here we go. Hey, I remember you showing us this on one of our podcasts.
Right. The whole Lone Wolf. And
Lone Wolf
if you go
Cub,
to the
right?
top, if you read on the top, choose the lightsaber and you will join me. Choose the ball and you will join your mother. And that's before even the Book of Boba Fett, that last episode.
Oh, wow. Yeah, good point.
It jives into the Star Wars. I mean, we all love Lone Wolf.
Yeah. Bad.
Did you guys ever check out the manga to that?
The Lone Wolf and Cub manga, I did not.
Yeah, so it started off in late 70s, I believe, and like is this 20-part or something like epic manga. Two authors, I think a writer and artist did it together and was like humongous in Japan. And then they turned it into movies.
I like the logo. It's a good logo with the grass blades.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Big fan. All right, so make sure you guys subscribe, join the Patreon so I can buy this. We don't even have a Patreon, but I'm gonna need.
I was like, wait a minute, what are you reading?
I'm gonna need to get one so I can afford this diorama here, guys. It's great. I really do love. I love that they kept when you look at Maul's face, and I don't know how clear it's coming on the image because you can't do a super zoom, but it looks just like the Clone Wars animation, which I really like that they nailed that.
Oh yeah,
how tall is this figure? 12 inch?
They haven't revealed anything yet. Like
literally,
literally the page is this. It just is
that
preview.
Looks really, really good.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was like a 14 or 16-inch figure.
Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like.
It does. I wonder how they're gonna do the floating effect because you guys can see they're floating. I don't know how they're gonna do that.
Probably there's like a little stance that goes into the throne.
There might be bars in the throne, yeah.
I was gonna say I wonder if they're connecting to the throne. That's kind of what I was guessing on it.
Yeah,
it's really
cool.
They
do that with Assassin's Creed figures with those like epic poses.
Yeah.
I have a couple of them.
I like it a lot, guys. I am a fan. That was the weekend merch. I keep it up, Disney. Looking good. Keep my wallet nice and empty. I appreciate you continuing to humor me there. What else, guys? What else was breaking in Star Wars this week that we want to talk about?
Are we talking about that one book?
Oh my goodness. We got 14 viewers in here. Let's talk about the book. Let's wrap up the nighttime off the book.
We're talking about that book.
Could someone even tell me the name of the book? I bet I can find it here. It's called what? The Wedding of
Princess and the Scoundrel.
The Princess and the Scoundrel.
The Princess and the Scoundrel. Now, if guys, you missed this announcement, I'm trying to find it for a visual aid here, but let me set the scene. They announced a new book in the I don't know, do they know the age range for this? Is it going to be a young adult?
It's through Del Rey, so I'm assuming it's an adult novel.
Adult novel focused on the marriage of one Han Solo and one Princess Leia. And this book has gotten quite a bit of attention this week.
I gotta go grab a couple books. I'll be right back.
All right, so we're gonna get some real-time visual aids here. let me kind of break down where the drama came from and if it's worth talking about, or what our feelings are here.
Right.
One piece of controversy was that this book had allusions to okay, so when I said it, to the Star Cruiser, which is Disney's hotel. I'm raising my hand and saying I'm not educated on this. I don't know what sort of connection we're talking about. If it's like it's a line in the book and it's like, oh hey, they're going to Star Cruiser, and it's like kind of a little wink at the audience. Okay, that's one thing. But if it's a major plot point, like they're on a mission to get to Star Cruiser, I'd roll my eyes a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm forgiving as the next person, but I don't know if I just showed you guys all the products I want to spend my money on. Okay, so they don't even have to tie them into novels, and I'll buy them. Okay, so don't sell me that hard. Is all I'm gonna say. You don't need to sell me on something that hard. Is all I kind of felt about that. But the other bit of controversy that hit Legends fans was its closeness, its reminiscence of a Legends novel come before. I will turn it over to the Legends fans to talk about.
Jim, do you mind if I take this one over and then I'll pass it up? I'm ripping that microphone literally from Josh's face. Like, give me, gotta talk. It can't be in any shape or form be associated with any kind of sales pitches or hotel. I don't want to hear none of that BS because you're treading on the sacred ground here, guys. I was never and will never be critical of canon books trying to do something different, but this one felt especially close at home for two reasons. And first and foremost, before we get to talking to our legendness of like how epically we love these books, we got to talk just a tiny bit about sequels. We all enjoy them to some extent. We all criticize them to some extent. We know what they are. We know they're flawed films, but we just get to love and celebrate them for having more Star Wars. There's one aspect of that particular trilogy which felt wrong to so many of us, is that very unfulfilling relationship between Han and Leia. Granted that you can discuss how effectively that story was told, whether it was tragic and you wish it turned otherwise, whether it's a lot of personal feelings and bias involved in it. That's all has merit within this conversation, right? It could have been an effective story that a lot of people just couldn't identify with, or other people could just say, why couldn't you give a piece of this story that is satisfying? Why Han Solo had to be this failure who's like abandons Leia and his kid, and it just so people have very, very strong feelings with that. So from that perspective, I honestly, personally don't want to see anything on their relationship in regards to canon, and I don't want to see anything on the new cast in regards to future books. I simply don't care. I don't care about the future look. I don't care about the future Rey, Poe, or Finn. Why? Because I just want to get past that point where people are so highly critical over it. I don't want that energy around Star Wars anymore. And partially because of that unfulfillment with Han and Leia. And the second half of it, guys, this book, Jim, pick up your copy.
Absolutely.
So David Farland, this is another name, famous for Rune Lord series of his original work, was also a prominent Star Wars author under the name of Dave Wolverton. And this is not just something that feels nostalgic to be like, oh, the first time we got to experience Han and Leia's story. This is one of the most excellent Star Wars novels written. And I'll be honest with you guys, after that announcement was made, my first impulse was like, dude, just don't do it. Don't go there. Don't go this route. Because if you don't match this word for word in greatness, people are just going to trash it. They're going to tear it apart. And I just don't want to experience that anymore. This is too near and dear to me. And I don't want to people, Star Wars fans to be at each other's throats. They're like, oh, it's not like the original. You know what I mean? Making that comparison, which will inadvertently happen because this book is so great. Because this book is so freaking special. I've talked for long enough, Jill. Let's pass it over to you.
It is a little iffy because, a lot of the new canon books before have stepped over a lot of stuff and it just swept it all under the rug. So right. I don't think your reaction is I don't think you're overreacting. I think it's fair for you to feel that way, especially when, Dave Wolverton brought some very interesting concepts in, especially the one being the Witches of Dathomir.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that has become huge
very
popular now.
Yeah.
Especially in new canon. So I think it's a little iffy, but I think the one thing that my stance on it is on the whole Halcyon cruiser thing.
Mm.
And I talked with Ben a little bit about this, and I want to put my point out here. A lot of people hate it for a couple of reasons. One, the courtship of Princess Leia is already a thing. And the whole, it feels like Disney is pushing the Halcyon cruiser very hard by adding it to this book. Fair, but they've done that already, and it wasn't a bad thing. I have more examples. Because I've got both Black Spire and The Crash of Fate.
Right.
Both Galaxy's Edge centered novels.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yes, the point of these books, well, it was to tell a great story. Crash of Fate, by the way, fantastic love story. Yeah, it is based on the concept of trying to get people to go to Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
And that was the whole point when those books came out, and everyone kind of ignored them because of that, but it didn't take away from the story at all.
Right.
Black Spire is a fantastic follow-up to reading the Phasma book by Delilah S. Dawson.
I love Phasma book. It was so good, man. Surprisingly good.
Black Spire follows up with that. So, like, if you haven't, I recommend.
I have both of those books. I just got to get to them.
Wonderful. And yeah, Crash of Fate, it's kind of up there with Lost Stars as far as like the whole love interest thing. So I think it's really good. So just because it has Galaxy's Edge in the title, and yes, they were pushing for people to go to Galaxy's Edge, I don't think it took away from the book.
Right.
Now, yes, the Halcyon Star Cruiser thing has had a really rough time getting off the ground with a pretty rough little theatrical trailer they put out and all that stuff. And the money is ridiculous. I don't think that being in this book is going to ruin the book.
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, Jimmy made a good point there that that alone does not make it a bad book, right? Like
the biggest elephant in the room is just the Han and Leia relationship, which was just. And guys, you know me, I love The Last Jedi. To me, that's my favorite movie after Episode 6. That relationship just felt so hollow and unfulfilling, and that could be perhaps even the testament to the story they were trying to tell. I felt it so unsatisfying. I'm like, don't touch it. Because I don't want any of it. I don't want their story explored. I don't want more elaborated. Just move on to something like the High Republic.
One thing I will say as we wrap up here, because I got a topic for a different show just after what you said. One of the things for the sequel trilogy that didn't land for me, as someone who actually likes Force Awakens, I think more than the average person, I thought it was a good time. I know it's not. J.J. Abrams is really good at that. Like, and especially when he's telling the first story, I thought he did the same thing for Star Trek. I thought he had some really good kind of fun to be had at the theater, and I thought he did the same thing for Force Awakens. Where Han and Leia ended up to me in the sequel trilogy, I just didn't love it. It's just one thing that didn't really work for me. Of all the things, that one it just felt like a weird creative choice with very little payoff. Like, so a lot of people get hung up on the Luke situation, like, oh well, Luke was old, and I'm like, I buy that way more than what happened to Han and Leia. Different topic for a different time, but go ahead, Jimmy.
I was gonna say, like, I agree with that because just from reading the few Legends novels I have, like in the original Thrawn trilogy, Han is really up on Luke, like, hey, so when is Leia getting her own lightsaber? I really think she should have that. We have kids on the way. I think she should be able to defend herself and the kids. She needs a lightsaber. Luke, give her a lightsaber. Whereas, like the first, what starts as like the beginning of the new canon after Return of the Jedi with Aftermath.
Yeah,
Han and Leia are completely separated like the entire time.
Yeah.
And they shut down Leia's any Jedi potential right away. It's like, but I was training, but then I saw this vision and I kind of gave my lightsaber. I'm like, no, I can't accept it. There's a certain
that part doesn't really bother me that much.
Right. No, it's all on individual level. It's all
absolutely.
We have differences.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that a lot of these particular moments in Star Wars feel so sacred to us that this is where like the emotional part of it. I'm telling you, Jim, it surprised even me. I don't know why I reacted in this way, because all of the new canon books, I've been gobbling them up. Like, oh, I want to learn about this area, the Aftermath books, immediately after Episode 6. Let me see what it said. I don't know why. The moment I read these news, I'm like, alarm bells ringing off. I'm like, I don't know, man. It's too personal for me.
No, and I totally get that.
Yeah.
Interesting point here.
We'll see. I'm an optimist. I hope they really treat the subject matter with respect. And it's like, it blows my mind like the Lost Stars did. And you're reading it's like, what can it possibly be innovative with retelling the story of the original trilogy? And you read it's like, holy crap, this is amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
I think kind of a fun point here, which is that even though I didn't like the Han and Leia, it might not be that unrealistic, which is true. I mean, the way relationships go, it definitely can be that.
And look at that. We can all disagree and not hate
there we
each other.
go.
I love it.
Well, how dare you guys? This is my last podcast.
All right, cut him.
You're Disney still.
Get
You're
him off the
pushing
air.
too many toys.
Pause.
Whoa,
Go to
whoa,
commercial.
whoa. My toy. Don't step on the toys. All right, that's one thing.
You'll be behind on the deck, right? Like,
That's
I hope you step on Legos.
Oh, well, geez, the way I'm going. I got that Daily Bugle. It's big. All right, guys. Well, I think that was it for me. Any other things we missed this week? Any other big stories?
I mean, there was that little deleted scene for Jango Fett that was redone with CGI.
Yeah, for the folks who I don't have that pulled up, but the folks who missed it, the full cut.
What's that about?
Okay, so the full cut of that scene.
I can find it real quick.
Yeah,
Please,
go for it.
by all means.
Go
You guys
for
not
it.
in a rush. I'm willing to watch this. What is this?
So
Is it
I'll give some
fan-made?
background. I'll give some background as Jimmy's pulling it up. Basically, the full way that scene was filmed and set up, it was not simply Mace Windu just cutting off his head. He also took out a few more limbs with him. And so someone added the CGI to show you what that would have looked like. They took the raw footage and added some of their own CGI to give you a picture of what was going to be a far more brutal takedown.
Wait, Lucas actually filmed some parts and
He
didn't make
did.
it into the.
He
Oh.
filmed it, didn't make it in and you'll see it here when Jimmy sends it
Yeah,
over.
I have the link right now. This is through Reddit. I'm sending it to
Okay.
you, Josh.
Dude, that was the most anticlimactic death in Star Wars.
It was.
Fuck.
This might change your mind. I don't know. I'm a little indifferent on it.
So I was a big Jango Fett. You guys know me. I was a big Jango Fett shill over here.
Yeah.
All right, let's pull it over here. Can you guys see the screen here?
Not yet.
Nope.
All right. Let me hit pause real fast. We'll get this going. All right, you guys see it?
So,
Yeah.
so
All right.
before you hit play, what this is going to do is going to show everyone the original cut,
Okay.
then the deleted scene that they actually had, and then a
Yep.
fan
And
went
then-
in and
Gotcha.
redid it with the CGI to give it what would look like a finished product.
Here we go.
Gotcha. I haven't seen this. Pam, 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 pam. Boom. Badass dead. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
And now someone goes in here and
Arm, leg, head.
Ooh, this is so badass.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, this
very-
is epic, dude.
arm, leg, head.
Oh, this is dope.
One thing that's really unique about this is it's playing in the background, or not unique, but is interesting about this is it does lean into that whole Mace Windu's style being so connected to the
The
dark
Papa,
side.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of shows a little bit more of the brutality of it, where it's arm, leg, head. It's a
You know what's
great
funny?
finisher.
When you read the Shatterpoint novel, it's the author obviously recognizes Sam Jackson's great on-screen persona. And what he very effective, but for some reason I didn't like the casting for Mace Windu because he was such an established and known actor at
Actor.
that point. I was very, very on the fence when they casted him. But when you read the book, the author combines Sam Jackson's charisma, but then also starts developing, carving out the personality of Mace Windu and joins them together. That's what we'll later see in the Clone Wars series. I'm like, they took it from the Shatterpoint novel. It's like such a cool version of Mace Windu. That's what we see here in this little snippet.
So like,
That's fun.
and with this, I want to beg the question again, about the whole R-rated thing. Would you have preferred this to be the final cut that was in the movie, or are you fine with what the original one is? Both Ben and Josh, what are your thoughts?
The new one's cooler. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
I mean, it's a
But it's-
badass thing to look out of context, but like, does it improve the story? Does it make it better?
Yeah.
I guess that like if people who are heavy on action scenes.
I was gonna say it doesn't like change. It doesn't move the needle in the movie, but it's just a cooler shot. I mean,
See,
there's that.
I know for me, like when I watched it, like I saw the extended with CG thing that was made like a couple days ago, so that is
Yeah.
really new. The deleted scene I think was dropped like a week or two ago. It was probably around longer than that, but it just became more popular.
Yep.
And when I watched it with the CG, I felt very uncomfortable because like I remember as a kid when I watched Phantom Menace for the first time, when Darth Maul dies, my 4-year-old brain was like, why does pants fall off? I didn't think anything of it.
Mhm.
And here, like I remember watching Attack of the Clones when he cut Jango's head off, I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, that was crazy. So like if I were like, I think I was probably like 6.
Did
when I
this
saw
scene
it.
terrify you? It made you feel like uneasy when you were a kid?
I did.
At 6, I was like, whoa.
yeah, I was young when
That
it
was a
came out.
lot.
Mm.
So if I had seen this extended CG version as a kid, I don't know, I would have been like, oh geez, because like just the
Yeah.
thought, because obviously yes, Mace Windu is supposed to be this kind of a fighter, so it makes sense. But you lose an
adults.
arm and then he stabs into his thigh and pulls it out, making it impossible for him to move anywhere. It's very scary.
Yeah, George knew what he was doing by taking that out.
Sorry, guys. Can I take you off topic just for a little bit? I know we're like overstaying our podcast. I'm just curious, since we're on this topic. When you were watching like prequels, your memories were there a lot of moments that are not just exciting, but kind of like, you know, when you were a kid, you watch something, it's either so frightening or so out there, but you just can't stop watching it, and that is so ingrained in your memory. Did you have like a lot of moments like that throughout the trilogy? I
had a couple, and I think the one that always stands out to me the most is Revenge of the Sith was like the first piece of media content ever that actually ever made me cry.
Which moments?
It was specifically during Padme's funeral, but not like just that itself. It was specifically when you see the necklace in her hand.
Yeah.
And like I remember, like I don't even remember how old I was when I watched it, but I literally said out loud, through everything, she still loved him. And it just killed me like as a kid, because like it wasn't until I saw the necklace and I was like, well, I'm done for now.
I think I told Ben in our podcast on his channel about this, that Revenge of the Sith, from a young viewer's perspective, is one of the first movies we ever saw that had an unhappy ending.
Yeah.
Like as an adult, that's not like, that's whatever. But as a kid, the good guy didn't win. In fact, it was totally opposite. Everything. And the thing about the Revenge of the Sith that, you know, as a kid, it's like you knew what was going to happen, right? Because your parents had told you, but you didn't want it to happen anyway. And you wanted desperately for it to not happen. And then the movie just did it anyway. And I really liked that. I think, Ben, I told you, I think would have been, this goes in line with what I talked about with Civil War, I think would have been an even more effective ending. You know, the end of Revenge of the Sith does feel the need to like tell you it's going to be okay. Like it shows you obviously Luke and Tatooine. It has the big sweeping theme, which I'm okay with. But I felt like the movie really was quite, you know, for a young viewer, quite sad. I mean, it was, you know, as an adult, it's not like maybe it's hard to you know, maybe it's hard to relate. But for me, when I watched it, I remember it was heavy. Order 66 was heavy. The music throughout that, you know, Padme's ruminations.
I remember one scene specifically that just gave me that pulse. Like it made me remember when I was a 6-7-year-old watching the original trilogy. I don't know why. Some fans are either speculating or it's been out there that Steven Spielberg directed that scene, the quiet moment before Anakin goes to assassinate basically Mace Windu, help assassinate. I don't know why. It's just it's the artistry of visual storytelling where you don't need dialogue, but the scene is so effectively and consciously thought out that when you watch it as audience, that music is playing. First of all, I told you guys from the beginning, I always enjoyed Hayden Christensen's acting. I never had a problem with it. Obviously, Natalie Portman was a far more established actress than him. He's like a less experienced actor, but in particularly in that scene, I was like, oh man, I think this.
And I think that's one of the things that plays into the emotion, like not so much the scene as much as the scoring behind it, because that scene specifically,
everything, like the visuals, the scene, the music, the
gold hue,
and I think it's actually very relatable, because like I'm sure everyone at least once in their life has had a moment where like they have to make a really tough decision and they just sit there in silence for as long as they can, trying to hold it off because they don't want to have to go through it. So like I get that totally. And the music that plays over it, Padme's Ruminations,
it's the best.
Rip everything out, you know.
Padme's Ruminations is great. There's a couple songs during Order 66 and after as well.
Order 66 was flawless. I loved it. I was like, oh man. It made me wish the entire every sequel sequence, like in the prequels, made me feel that way. That's what I was craving the most. It's not like, you know, check marks, the cybers of this length and width or this particular look. I just wanted to feel like when I watch Mandalorian, when I watch the Book of Boba Fett, just make me feel. I don't care if it's executed to the perfection. Just make me experience that moment.
Yeah, so like literally, because like within the first 7 minutes of the Bad Batch, you know, Order 66 happens again, and I'm like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna start crying, aren't I? Yep,
I came out of closet as a prequel, like Clone Era fan with that last episode. I'm like, Ben, you better admit to yourself and to the audience, you're a fan.
It's so good. Like Bad Batch does that really well.
Proud of
Fantastic, man.
What an bad man. Score matters. That's one thing I'll end us on here. Score is so important to the emotions of a scene.
That's why
I have found many a time that this is obvious. Even average shots can be greatly enhanced by the music behind it. It's a real thing.
Follow me on Spotify if you don't already. I have a public playlist of my favorite Star Wars tracks.
Hey, we'll have to drop that in the chat. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
put it in the description after this video once we're done here. The music of Star Wars could be its own little podcast, I'm sure.
Oh,
But
But
please.
we copyright strike the hell, so we can't even do it.
No,
because
I think
just want to listen to
talking about it would be okay.
it. But it's hard. You got to listen to it,
Yeah.
All right, guys. Anything else? What else we have Star Wars on the brain?
We vented. We talked about the shows. We covered a lot today.
We did.
Yeah, we had a good
Covered a lot.
time.
It was a good stream. I appreciate we had a lot of good participation from chat. It's always more fun when you guys interact. Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah.
The future is bright. The future is full of Star Wars. Let's see what comes next. We have a lot more on the way. Let's sign out. I will go ahead and say thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for liking and subscribing, all your support this year. Make sure you do the same for obviously Ben's channel. He's exploding. He's gonna be the next Star Wars theory. So
My next channel is going to be Star Trek, I think.
Well, we have like 16 channels coming out, guys. We got
Right.
Dune, Lord of the Rings, Star Trek on high, all that stuff. We're coming for the belt. So stay tuned for.
We're gonna live stream me drawing a map of Middle Earth by memory.
That would be something. I'd love to see us do that. We can do that here. I don't even care. We need to do a channel for that. All right, guys. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you guys have a great. I think it's a technically a U.S. holiday. It's a long weekend for some folks. Hope you guys enjoy that. If not, we'll see you again on next Thursday. Let us know down below what you want to talk about next week. Until then, guys, we'll see you again very soon. Thanks, guys.